Matt LaFleur is a really good coach, but he doesn't have a coaching tree. This is really good and potentially really bad.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet. And this show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. One of the followers, listeners, Clint, pointed this out. Matt LaFleur doesn't really have a coaching tree. And I was trying to think, okay, by the way, Nathanial Hackett does count. And it's not Matt LaFleur's fault that Nathanial Hackett flamed out ingloriously as a head coach. It's not Matt LaFleur's fault that Nathanial Hackett was only hired in both Denver and New York, specifically to lure Aaron Rodgers. Because Nathanial Hackett was a very good coach in Green Bay. They loved Nathanial Hackett in Green Bay to a man. The players, the coaches, everyone, and they had elite offenses in Green Bay with Nathaniel Hackett as the offensive coordinator. How much of that is Matt LaFleur and how much of that is Nathaniel Hackett? Well, the players will tell you Hackett was a big piece of that. Third downs, red zone, all that stuff. But it got me thinking, are there other coaches out there, like coaches we think are really good, who don't really have a coaching tree? And I was struck when I realized Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is, I think, going to moonwalk into the Hall of Fame as a coach. Whether that's deserved or not, I don't know. I think personally, Mike Tomlin has been speaking of moonwalking, been skating on his reputation for a long time. He has not won a playoff game since the Obama administration. And the most recent playoff wins have been against some pretty mediocre quarterbacks. But he doesn't really have a coaching tree. Part of that is because the program is Mike Tomlin. And I think sometimes we overstate the degree to which a coach has a coaching tree, certainly a coaching tree that works. Like Bill Belichick is 1A, 1B, maybe 1C. It's like Vince Lombardi, Bill Walsh, Bill Belichick are the three greatest pro football coaches ever, in whatever order you want to say. Basically, every coach that came off the Belichick coaching tree flamed out, did not work. He had a coaching tree. Teams wanted to hire his coaches. They weren't any good. What ultimately matters is, can you hire good coaches? Coaches that can support and supplement what you do. The problem, and this is something we've talked about before with Matt LaFleur, is he has struggled to hire coaches not in his area of expertise. By all accounts, Adam Stenavich is a well-respected, well-liked coach around the NFL, has had some offensive coordinator opportunities. Luke Getsy was someone who was taken from the Packers staff, position coach that gets an opportunity, multiple opportunities to be a play caller and go out and be an OC. The fact that he never got a head coaching opportunity, part of that is circumstances. There were issues, certainly in Chicago beyond his control. And so the defensive part, the special teams part, this is the part that is more concerning, because if the offense, if you hire mediocre coaches, let's say, if you're Matt LaFleur, well, that can be offset by the fact that Matt LaFleur seems to be a very good offensive coach. Matt LaFleur is, after all, the play caller for the Green Bay Packers. It's when the defense is not playing at the level that you want it, do you have the right coaches there to fix that? The problem for the Packers is their solution, you go back to Mike Pettin and Joe Barry, had been for Matt LaFleur to take a little bit more of that responsibility. He's got to be in those defensive meetings a little bit more. It's not really what you want. And it seems like what happened last year was he hired Jeff Hafley specifically because he wanted someone to run their program. Come in and do your thing. I don't want to have to hold your hand. Just come do the thing. And frankly, I think that was the intention when they hired Mike Pettin. I was on board with them keeping Mike Pettin. I thought Mike Pettin did a lot of nice things for the Green Bay Packers. But by the end there, it was time. And look, he has not had a meaningful role in an NFL team since. Ditto for Joe Barry, but that's a problem for Matt LaFleur. Now, if you want to give him a pass for the Mike Pettin bit, I'm happy to do that because it seems like, not that it was forced upon him, but that it was suggested, hey, we like this guy. And it was reported Mike Pettin was on Matt LaFleur's list of potential defensive coordinators. When you interview for these jobs, you come and say, hey, here are a couple coaches I think I would like to hire. Ultimately, it's up to the front office to pay for those things. And it has been suggested that the Packers maybe missed out on a special teams coach, maybe Darren Rizzi, early in Matt LaFleur's tenure because they weren't willing to pay up for that coach. So we know that the front office has some say in that, even though technically the head coach's responsibility is the coaching staff. But this has been a special teams issue too. Like, it would be one thing if Matt LaFleur was doing the Andy Reid where, like, yeah, no one's really given Steve Spagnuolo a real look. He's a great defensive coach. And you would think that guys would be getting plucked off his staff, getting defensive coordinator jobs, and that turning into head coaching opportunities. That happens less for defense in general. And Andy Reid, when he was in Philly, I mean, he just like printed future head coaches. In KC, it's been less frequent. Matt Nagy is the big example. That, of course, did not work out in Chicago. At least not long term. He's back and winning Super Bowls in Kansas City. It's different when you have change. When you have that clanky clank sound that you can put on the table, that ring that you can drop, or multiple rings. No one really cares. But when you look at Kyle Shanahan, when you look at Sean McVay, those guys have consistently made good hires. Sean McVay in particular. He hired Matt LaFleur after all. You find, the Wade Phillips hire was a great one. And then replacing him, you get Brandon Staley. You reset the football culture in the NFL in a lot of ways with that hire. And then you bring in Raheem Morris and say, we kind of want to keep some of this stuff in here. Can you do that? He says yes, and that gets him a head coaching job. Whether that's earned or not, I don't know. I think there is some Sean McVay magic that these guys get. I mean, it's not like, other than Matt LaFleur, a lot of these other guys have had success. Brandon Staley certainly did not have success. Zach Taylor has had some success. I think that has more to do with the fact that they were able to draft Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and then T. Higgins. It was before that, but still. I don't know that Zach Taylor is a great coach by any means. I don't even know that he's an average coach. They've had success because they nailed the quarterback. They got the number 1 overall pick. The one thing it gives you is continuity. The fact that Adam Stenavich, you have Luke Getsy again, Luke Butkus, the position coaches, Vrabel, Mahaffey, all these guys have just been able to work their way up. They've created this continuity, and it's not unlike what happened with Mike McCarthy in Green Bay, where everyone kind of knew it was the head coach who calls plays, it was the great quarterback, and that was it. Now, I think if the Packers have another year like they did last year, in terms of having offensive success and team success, Adam Stenavich is going to get a real look next year. I was surprised he didn't get more looks for some of the play calling offensive coordinator jobs that were out there, because I think that's his entry into being a head coach. It's not ideal because of all the reasons we just mentioned. That the inability to hire the right coaches has actually hurt the team. It's not about, oh, they didn't hire coaches good enough for other teams to want to hire them. It's more that the coaches had just not been good enough. He's had to cycle through special teams coordinators and defensive coordinators. But at least on offense, where you would have expected teams to poach a little bit more, it's allowed them to create some continuity. And now they're going to have defensive continuity a couple years into now this Rich Bisaccia experiment, which, varying degrees of success there. Continuity is going to be what's going to carry the Packers in 2025. We'll see if it lasts beyond that. Now, one place that they do not have continuity is in their defensive front. And that is an under-the-radar story that I want to talk about next on Locked On Packers. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it all possible because Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and you've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a low price guarantee that takes the worrying out of buying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Locked On NFL. Download the Gametime app. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. I don't know that we spend enough time on this program. I can't speak for anybody else. I don't make their content. We did not spend enough time on this program talking about the improvements to the run defense last year. The Packers in the final year, I don't even have a good word to explain the happiness that it brought Packer fans when they saw not only is Joe Barry being fired, but you get Jeff Hafley, who played an exciting brand of football at Boston College, at least. This defense was 26th by DVOA in 2023 against the run. Bad. And they were, for the entirety of the Joe Barry era, terrible against the run. Bottom 5, I believe bottom 2, bottom 3, if you look at EPA per play and defensive metrics of that nature. Against the run, it was bad. And part of the reason was structural. You play a lot of light boxes. You play a lot of too high safeties. The whole point is you put a roof on it and you don't allow explosives. The problem for the Packers was they were still allowing explosives, in part because they couldn't tackle, and they were allowing explosives in the run game. They were allowing explosives on throws underneath because they were not playing disciplined and they were not tackling at all. Jeff Hafley comes in. They're gonna play more single high. Now they still kept that 2 high shell. They rotated into single high, but ultimately you're adding that defender to the box. They played far more base defense last year than they ever did with Joe Barry. You go back to 2021, they're in dime a bunch. Jeff Hafley's like, what is dime? Even as a former DB's coach, he's like, I don't understand what dime is and why you would even play it. But they also got significantly better safety play. Xavier McKinney, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard, those guys tackle. In open space, those guys tackle. How many times over your life as a Packer fan do you remember running backs in the open field making these replacement level safeties that the Packers were trotting out there in the prime of Aaron Rodgers' career? and they were just getting dusted. And you're just like, how many more times can I watch MD Jennings get smoked in the open field? It was a question that had to be asked plenty in Brett Favre's prime as well. How much Atari Bigby is too much? Well, the answer is, for the most part, any. Although he was really fun to watch. When he was going, he could be fun. No doubt about it. There's a small piece here, though, that I don't think we can ignore, and that is that TJ Slayton, we talked about this in the run-up to free agency and the draft, TJ Slayton was ESPN's #1 run defender last year in run stop win rate. So the amount of times that he was on the field and created a run stop, that rate led the NFL according to ESPN's charting. Now, you can play devil's advocate and say, well, TJ Slayton was on the team when they had bad run defenses too. That's true. That's true. But it's also the case that TJ Slayton played his best football last year and the Packers let him go with no obvious replacement on the roster. There is not a player who, with proven NFL snaps, who you can say, you just plug that guy right into that role and you can get a similar production, because that's not what Devonte Wyatt does. Devonte Wyatt is a penetrator. He is a disruptor. He is let's mess stuff up guy. Let's shoot a gap and try and create a TFL. Not let me take on two and make it easier for Quay Walker or Adrian Cooper to go make the tackle. More on linebackers coming up. It's just not what he's good at. Same with Carl Brooks, who played some nose tackle last year. Like, they tried desperately to not have Kenny Clark play nose tackle last year. And that's why I think the two Georgia guys, Warren Brinson and Nazir Stackhouse, each have an opportunity to play real, meaningful roles in this Packers defense this year. Warren Brinson at 6'5", 310. Strong, but is more of that one gap type run defender. Let me take this one guy and go try and win. There's some pass rush juice in there, but he is a big dude. He built really like a traditional 5-tech, 3-4, 5-tech. And maybe the Packers want to go to some odd fronts at times and have someone that they can do that with. Stand up a pass rusher. Be a little bit more diverse with their fronts. Maybe he's a base defensive end in some of these looks. They need the size, because Carl Brooks is he played defensive tackle in the NFL because he was an oversized defensive end, kind of an undersized defensive tackle. Certainly as a nose tackle, if he's going to be doing that, can't do it. Kobe Wooden, way too small for that. But those guys played nose tackle reps by alignment last year. This is why I think one of the names to watch, and it's not going to be something where you're going to watch in training camp, where it's going to be like, oh, Nazir Stackhouse is really winning one-on-one pass rush drills. No, it's not going to be that. Or, hey, Nazir Stackhouse, dominant in team. No, I don't think you're going to see that either. I don't think it's going to pop off the page in the preseason. But he is someone who had a draftable grade. The consensus was he was a better prospect than Brinson. The Packers used a 6th on Brinson. Nazir Stackhouse went undrafted. But 6'4", 330 abouts, 320 plus. Built a lot like TJ Slayton. Long arms. Can control blocks. Can be that traditional nose tackle, can be that it's 1st and 10. You're playing a team that does run the ball on early downs, because the Packers also play some teams that don't. Can you take advantage of the fact that the Lions don't have the same interior strength that they used to? It would be really nice to be able to take advantage of that if you could do it. The fact that they don't have a 1-for-1 TJ Slayton replacement, I said in the run-up to the pre-draft, wait until day 3 to get that guy, but it would be nice to get that guy. They waited until late on day 3, but then they got 2 guys. And it is going to be by committee. But for some of the same reasons we talked about, you need to add some bodies in the receiver room. It's not just the top end talent. It's the fact that, okay, two of these guys with Dobbs and Watson, they're probably going to be gone next year. And then you're already last year of the Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks contracts. Well, you're in a similar position with these defensive linemen. Devontae Wyatt had his 5th-year option picked up, but then you're looking at Carl Brooks and Kobe Wooden being in the last years of their deal. The future of Kenny Clark very much up in the air. So you need bodies. I think these guys can come in and contribute right away. I think each of them has a chance to be a part of this defensive line rotation. I wouldn't be surprised if one or both of them push Kobe Wooden right off this roster. And their ability to keep things clean for the linebackers is going to be vital. I want to talk about the linebackers. We haven't done a lot of that this offseason. Let's do it next on Locked On Packers. Thank you for making Locked On Packers your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. As training camp gets closer and moves are being made, host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Linebacker play was a big reason why the run defense was better last year, especially in the second half when Quay Walker had the best stretch of football he played in his career. It looks like the Packers are trying to work on a long-term deal with him. We've talked about some of the numbers that can make sense there. Edgerrin Cooper has the chance to be one of the premier defensive players in this league, one of the true field-tilting linebackers. Then what happened? I don't know. Tyron Hopper is not a lock to make this team. And I don't know what the strongest phrasing you could use in terms of like odds. I don't even know. I mean, it's probably better than 50-50. But if you told me that Isaiah Simmons came in and played well enough to push him off the roster, I wouldn't be surprised. And in fact, the very signing of Isaiah Simmons and re-signing of Isaiah McDuffie suggests to me that the team is not at all confident in Tyron Hopper's ability to come in and play snaps for them. Now, that is not surprising. He was one of the biggest reaches by consensus in the 2024 draft. 3rd-round player, seen more like a 5th-round player, 6th-round player. Now, is that big a deal in the middle rounds? I don't know. There were better players by consensus that you could have taken. I do know that. And it's easy to armchair quarterback this thing, Monday morning quarterback this thing and say, oh, well, in retrospect, you could have XYZ. But like even in the moment, there was a lot of like, you sure about that? And so far, that skepticism has turned out to be right. Now, there is a position up for grabs. We talked about the run defense and playing more base. That means more 3 linebacker looks. Okay. Tyron Hopper, it sounds like he's getting work as the Sam linebacker. It seems like that would be a place for his style. He's a physical kind of hair on fire, run and chase linebacker. But like Isaiah McDuffie was playing that spot last year at the end of last season. Isaiah McDuffie is not ideally suited to that. Isaiah McDuffie is the definition of a backup, frankly, I think Mike linebacker, special teams player. That's what he is. But he had to play. Now, Isaiah Simmons, not ideally suited to be a Sam linebacker either. But I think if he's the guy that they end up putting in that rotation, you can put Edgerrin Cooper on the edge. You can put Quay Walker on the edge. Put Isaiah Simmons, I think, as a will linebacker makes sense. There is opportunities for someone to take 20, 30% of defensive snaps here. Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker are going to play something close to 100% of snaps of games where they are healthy. So what can you get from these other guys? What can they give you and what kind of roles can they carve out? And I do think it is troubling that we're not even sure, certainly not 75% sure Tyron Hopper is going to make this team. I am much more confident, I think, in Isaiah Simmons making this team right now today. And when you put together, okay, they re-signed McDuffie, they signed Isaiah Simmons, it was like, well, where are the reps? Well, it could be that Tyron Hopper's reps are just on a different team. And that might be the reality. And furthermore, they don't really have a linebacker with a traditional Sam linebacker body. I thought it was Eric Wilson, but they were giving him off-ball stacked like Mike linebacker reps. Like he was the Mike linebacker when Quay Walker was hurt. He was getting Will linebacker reps in place of Edgerrin Cooper when Edgerrin Cooper was still working his way into figuring out this defense and how to prepare and all those things. So I think Jeff Hafley's a little bit of a madman, a little bit of a wild card, and he's just going to say, look, I'm just going to do the thing that Matt LaFleur loves to do and say, I'm just going to put my 3 best guys out there when we're in base. And whatever that means, that's what it means. Just having a bigger body out there, even if, Isaiah McDuffie, not the ideal take-on guy at the point of attack. Guess what? He's going to be better than another safety. So you'd rather have that linebacker on the field, that body type on the field. He's going to do a better job against that tight end combo block than a safety would. Especially a safety filling from depth, if that's what they're doing. So now you could get a step forward. Like, what if Quay Walker is for 17 games what he was for about a month in the middle of last season and then was again in that Eagles game? Came back, and that was the stamp for me. I was pointing it out as we were in real time going, Quay Walker is playing his best football of his career, but let's just sort of wait and see here. He gets hurt, which was, of course, a bummer for him because it's like you're playing your best football. Packers have to decide on your future, all those things. You get hurt and then come back, and then Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper just sort of pick up where they leave off against the Eagles, and he plays well. And you go, okay, if this is who he is, then this is a good player who is potentially worth extending. I'm not convinced. I still think you should be taking these Tyron Hopper 3rd, 4th, 5th round shots on linebackers, much like with tight ends, every year until you hit on Bobby Wagner. Until you hit on Fred Warner. Shaq Leonard. Like that's what. But they have two players who it seems like at least one is definitely very good and the other one could be very good. Maybe that's enough. But I do think we're going to see them mix and match and play the chess piece game. There are going to be matchups, weeks, where you go, yeah, it really would be nice to see Isaiah Simmons out there more. Can Tyron Hopper get to a place where he is part of that calculation? If not, that is going to look like a pretty big missed opportunity when you were able to accumulate draft assets the way that the Packers were in that draft. To have the amount of draft capital. And they, look, I think Jordan Morgan can be a really good player. Javon Bullard, Edgerrin Cooper, those guys seem like they have real bright futures. We'll see on Marshawn Lloyd. They love him. They doubled up at linebacker. One of them looks like he's really good. Maybe that was just the thought process. You hope you hit on one. And if Edgerrin Cooper is in that level where I think he can get to, if he can get to that tier of players, that Roquan Smith kind of tier, then throwing away a draft pick on Tyron Hopper is not that big a deal because you're basically taking 2 draft picks to get a player of that caliber, and that works. That works. All right, back tomorrow more as we head toward training camp. We are in July here, just now a couple weeks away from training camp. Much more to come here on Locked On Packers. Our Leap series on player rankings continues. We had a free Monday post that I put out today on the Fringe 53 guys, because I think it was 60 through 51 ranking those Packers players. All guys I could see making the team. That's why it's particularly interesting. So go check that out. Follow me on the social medias. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe over on our YouTube page so you can stay Locked On Packers.